My guest on this episode of the Potentialize podcast was given a 20% chance of survival, but then went on to win Paralympic gold for Great Britain and climb Mount Kilimanjaro on his hands and knees. This is a candid conversation with Aaron Phipps, and together we explore the seeds of potential. Be prepared to be amazed and inspired.
Welcome to Self-Leadership to Potentialize with Andrew Bryant. We'll explore the power of potential and the promise of self-leadership. Join Andrew, a global leadership expert and author, as he shares insights, strategies, and stories spanning 25 years and 40 countries. Together, we'll unlock what makes us human, harness technology wisely, and step boldly into the future of leadership.
So you caught meningitis. How old were you when you got meningitis?
I was 15. So I was in year 11 at school. So in the UK, that's senior year. So yeah, 15 years old, 6 months out from my exams.
Wow. Okay. So prior to meningitis, what was your identity around your potential? Had your teachers identified you as having potential academically, in sports, or were you just in the machine, trundling towards your A-levels with no idea what you were going to do with your life?
I was absolutely the latter. I was 15 years old, middle of the road, B grade student. I wasn't in the top sets, I wasn't in the bottom sets. I just floated along. The ones that get no attention at school because you're not terrible and you're not outstanding. So they're just happy that you're ticking over. I wasn't making some of the best choices. I discovered alcohol. I got an exciting job working at the local pub, which was good. I was meeting all these new people. I think the only thing that was different between me and my friends was I could actually speak to adults. Lots of my friends were still kind of grunting, but I had this job at the pub and I was meeting all these adults, and I found that like really exhilarating to be like chatting to people. And older girls would talk to me and I could make them laugh. When you're 15, that is massively important. But in terms of potential, no. I probably would have got B grades across the board. I liked art and graphics, but the reality of going into a job like that, because it's so competitive, I wouldn't have grafted. I played a bit of basketball for the school team, but if I'm being honest, I was a wimp. I wouldn't say boo to a goose. I'm one of life's warriors, which I've learned to cope with now as an elite athlete. But as a 15-year-old, I'd be thinking, oh God, what if I drop this ball? People are looking at me, just all the anxiety and the normal things that go with being a teenager. But I was just magnolia. And magnolia is a shit color in it. It's bland. I was just like,
it's off, eggshell white. Magnolia's eggshell white, correct?
Yeah, it is. So I'm like, in the UK, we used to paint everything magnolia. People had magnolia houses, but I was just, exactly.
Yeah.
Trundling towards my, would I have gone to college? Probably trundling along towards my A-levels.
Okay. Well, we share one thing in common. I was on the pub darts team at 15, so I was big for my age and also learned to, also discovered alcohol before my A-levels. But anyway, so you contracted meningitis, spent a year in hospital. Wow, that must have been a bit of a come to Jesus moment about life, the reality of everything. That's getting dealt a 2 and a 7 in a hand of Texas Hold'em poker, isn't it? Right. So what went through your mind over those 12 months?
Well, so I went in on January the 7th, and this year was weird because the calendar days felt the same. I went back to school on the Monday the 6th, and then I never went back to school. I fell ill that night, and my symptoms, just if in case you're interested, I had a fever and I vomited twice. That was it. And I had a rash right at the end. The rash appeared. Mum called a doctor who called an ambulance. Never appreciated what put my parents through until I had my own children. I was given a 20% chance of survival in a coma for 2 weeks. But they brought me round, and it's weird because I think, going back to your resilient point about your other book, I think people think you become resilient because I don't think that's the case, because you're completely along for the ride. It was our amazing NHS that put me back together again. And it was, it's just happening around you. It's almost worse for your parents, I think. Obviously, you're going through all the pain and the shit, but for everybody else, they're just helpless and they can't help you, and you've got to go through it. But I remember quite quickly saying to my mum that I was going to beat this. I remember coming round, and I don't know what had switched in my head, but I remember quite quickly saying, no, fuck this, I'm going to beat this, and becoming very determined. I mean, when you've sort of I don't know, look death in the eye, like that close. And there's some other things that I nearly bled out in intensive care one time, burst a capillary in my lung, and like a horror film, loads of blood started coming out my trachea, and I nearly bled out a couple of times and things. And when you lay there and you think, I'm about to die, this is happening, I'm dying, and the nurses and the teams are saying, we're just going to put you to sleep. It's nothing to worry about. It's not like a nosebleed and it's going like flying out of you, things like that are happening. I mean, that's a wake up call. Now I see people on Facebook moaning about fucking wheelie bins. And I'm thinking, if that's the worst thing that's going on in your life, then what is going on? But I think it switched something in my head. And I think for that 12 months, I mean, it was a lot of pain. I had loads of skin grafts to save my knees, but a lot of it was kind of just rehabilitating and trying to get better, because you've got a goal. You're here, and if you want to get here, you've got to go for all the physio, you've got to go for everything to get through this 12-month period. So that was kind of almost my focus. I wanted to get better. I mean, I was down to like 7 stone and I needed to build everything back up again. Physios used to come and do sessions with me. I demanded double physiotherapy sessions. They used to come in on their lunch break and things because they were so busy, and do extra with me because I wanted to get better. I was determined to get better. But then at the end of it, you leave hospital. And, the question you'd say to people is, well, what would you do if you lost your legs? And people would come out with all these different answers. But actually what really happens is it's really fucking mundane, and you go back to normal life. And I went back to my parents' house, and I was living I was in the lounge to start with. I didn't have an accessible bedroom. I couldn't get upstairs. We had to get the garage converted. But you go back to just this mundaneness and this, you're different to everybody else. But nothing exceptional is really happening. You think it just takes off from there, but it doesn't. You've got to do something with it. And I think really, I lost myself for a while, partied pretty hard, but I think most people would if they'd been through that. Fortunately, I did the things that normal teenagers would be doing. My parents just let me get on with it. So I'd go out with my friends, get drunk, fall out of my wheelchair and things, which was good because the world isn't perfect, and it normalized it, and I learned coping strategies, I guess. But what it did was it flicked a switch in my hand, and it made me determined that I had to do something. I mean, I didn't know what my potential was, but I couldn't just go into this mundane life. Like, I was doing admin-based jobs and they didn't suit me. I mean, I'm not very academic, I'm more practical, play sport, but I couldn't be a plumber. I couldn't be an electrician because of my legs. So it flicked a switch in me. And I think I was sort of kind of in my early 20s having like a midlife crisis, because I was so aware of my own mortality. All my friends, they were just floating through life without a care in the world. It's because they, when you've stared it in the eye like that, you're wired differently. And I knew that I had to do something. So I didn't know what my potential was, but I planted a seed that I needed to do something. I didn't know what that was. Sorry, that was
so
the answer to 12 months, wasn't it?
No. Please don't apologize. That was absolutely the perfect answer I was looking for. And I've stared my own mortality, so I'm not going to bore you with the story now, but I know exactly what you mean. You're not worried about wheelie bins anymore. The interesting thing is you can backslide and go back to the mundane. But you mentioned the word determination, and it's a word that gets bandied around. You need to be determined. I'm a great fan of the late great Ayrton Senna, the F1 driver, and the most determined sports person. I don't know whether you could say the most, but an incredibly determined. But it's very difficult for somebody who doesn't have determination to tell them what determination is. What does determination mean to you?
Such a good question, because I'm not a natural athlete. When have we done personality profiling with my team? I've always come out as like sunshine yellow, like on paper, if I hadn't been ill, I wouldn't have become an athlete. But actually, I think a lot of that is skills that you can learn. But I think you need to have the drive to want to do it. So it's not necessarily determination, it's a want. Because some people, I know what you mean, you get some of these athletes that are almost, again, this isn't going to sound very PC, don't write this, I don't know how we word it, but almost autistic, their approach to things, aren't they? They're completely blinkered and they seem to be wired differently to the rest of the population. I'm not that person, but what it did was make me go, okay, I'm going to try different things. Now, if I'm being honest, I wasn't determined to become an athlete. I wasn't determined to climb Kilimanjaro, but I was determined to bloody make something of my life because of what had happened. I think that's how it started. And I just started to take opportunities. I started to do wheelchair racing. So I wanted to raise some money for charity. So I entered the local 10K race, did it in an everyday wheelchair, loved it. And maybe in some ways I was just looking for an out that I knew that I couldn't do an admin job for the rest of my life. But it made me want to do things. So I started wheelchair racing, and that led me into the London marathons, which led me into wheelchair rugby. But a lot of the things from there, it was just me taking opportunities. So it was just saying yes to things. And then it's like you agree to something, then you work out how the fuck you're going to do it. But if you don't agree, and don't do anything in the first place, then nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's goals and dreams.
That's it. Yeah.
The dreams in your head, the dreams that you think about, a goal is something you actually go and do.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So you had a towards and away from motivator. The towards was you wanted to make something of your life. And I guess the unspoken there, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was like, if you don't do something with this life, it seems like a bit of a waste because, you got a second chance, right? I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing there. Or...
No. I think you're right, but it's also having that aware of your mortality and knowing that it is going to end one day, and there's a chance that it could end. So you might as well enjoy it while you're here. And it removed the bit that said, these things are difficult, these things aren't for you. Because some people, I think, people watch people on the telly, you think they're the most amazing, wonderful people. That couldn't be you. There's no way I could do that. But actually there is, if you're prepared to just have a go. And that sounds really stupid, but it kind of removes those sensible barriers that we sometimes have, these blocks that we put up, these brick walls that we build, and we think, oh no, I can't go through that brick wall. No, I go, fuck brick wall. I nearly died. I smashed my head through it. I don't care. It's like... I don't when I do my motivational talks, I don't swear like this. But it's
no. Well, you could get away with it. There was a time when you weren't allowed to swear from stage, but now some people have made it actually. Tony Robbins does well with it. So, and the away from was you just didn't want a mundane clerical life, right?
I guess so. And I've not got a massive chip on my shoulder about needing to do something. I didn't know what it was, and I wasn't sure. I didn't know.
Did you go back and finish your high school and get, or did you just move on?
So a few of my GCSEs, they gave me off the back of my mock results. So I'd done a few mock exams. And I went to college and did art-based subjects. That kind of was what I was doing before. And I repeated a few of my GCSEs that I missed. So I've got my basic qualifications. But I think with something that's so competitive, there was people who loved it. People that live, to get into that environment, you need to live and breathe it. They're getting 2,000 applicants for jobs, aren't they? You've got to be exceptional. And I liked it, but I wasn't exceptional. So I know that I needed to go in a different direction.
Okay. So you learned that you could go fast in a wheelchair and you could go far, right? So when did the rugby come in? Did it come, was there a hiatus? How old were you when wheelchair rugby spotted you? Or you applied to that?
Yeah, indeed. So I was racing, I was doing marathons, and I'd done 2 London marathons. But as an amputee, because I'm in the same category who's someone who's paralyzed but really low down, I've got all my leg muscles, so I've got an arse. I'm like Beyonce. So I've got a backside because I can walk, which means I carry quite a lot more weight than a lot of the other racers. So I was never going to make it as a wheelchair racer. So maybe I was looking for another opportunity, but I was at the Racing Track Championships, got chatting to a couple of guys who played rugby, was asking them about this sport, and they said, you've got to come try it. And me being me, saying yes to things now, went, all right, I'll give that a go. And I got helicoptered into the GB team. So I was very lucky. But because of my racing, my fitness levels were already high. So I was already as fit as the other elite athletes, which is unusual because most people come in, they're not an athlete. I was, but I had to learn the technical aspect of the game. And then, it went from there.
Okay. So terrific. So your first Olympics was London, right?
Yeah, I'd been playing 3 years. So I started 2009 as a box fresh player, made it to the London Paralympics. I scored over half the team's points, but I was really, really wet behind the ears. It was, we came 5th, which was unfortunate, but it was brilliant. The other thing worth mentioning is in disability sports, not as much money as able-bodied sports. So I'd got married, I had a job. I couldn't just stop working now. So I had to fit my training in and around my job. So I was up at sort of 5 in the morning, training, working all day, then going training again, sleeping in the disabled toilet at work, stuff like that. Like, it wasn't fun. But I got to the Olympics. There you go.
You are, but that's a big goal, right? So having got to the London Olympics, then it's Tokyo 4 years later, right?
Yeah, okay. So Kili was in between those two. So I did, it was London. Then I took a break because I did it all around the wrong way. Married, mortgage, elite athlete. And I couldn't keep working full time and training. I said that to our CEO. I said, you're going to have to find another opportunity for me. And they said, well, leave then. And I don't think they were used to people actually going, all right, I'm going to leave. And I did. So for my own mental health being, that was the right thing for me to do at that time. My family was more important. I just couldn't keep doing it. Like, literally, I couldn't. This is not a determination thing. This was, I was going to drive my car into a tree or, have a breakdown. It wasn't sustainable. And then I did.
Can I interrupt you there? Because this willingness to say, I can't do that. So, and this is the flip side, because I mean, sometimes with people who are, goal orientated, go. But the person I haven't interviewed, but would love to, is Simone Biles, because of her courage to say, you know what, this is bad for my mental health. And, she walked away from medals, and the team and everybody, hated on her for a while, but she did the right thing, looked after her mental health, and came back. And I think maybe she gave a bunch of other people some permission to do the same thing. I mean, that's after you, but do you have a comment on, the pressure of sport and commitment and the willingness to say, you know what, this is not the right time, I need to go look after me?
Yeah, and it's the comment, I guess, is it's a shame that it's around money, but I think a lot of people have this perception that they're all multimillionaires, like footballers or all the American sports. But that's just not the case at all. I get paid less than what a teacher would get paid in the UK, and they work really hard as well. But it's not. It was just really hard. So it's not me being a diva. I just couldn't keep going and working. The lottery funding's really good. It's amazing. It supports people, but I think it's aimed for someone who's sort of 17, 18, 19, living with their parents, not someone who's married with children. You can't do everything. So and it was weird because when you're doing something like that, which people would think is the absolute pinnacle, they say, like, this is, people work their entire career and don't get selected for the Olympics. You're there and then you're saying, no, this isn't right for me. A lot of people wouldn't have the guts to do that because they feel like they've made it. It's like, you've made it. You are the top of the tree, yet you still go, you know what, this isn't for me. Lots of people spend their entire life trying to get to the top. You get there and then go, nah. But it's for the right reasons.
Good. Okay. Well, no, I think it takes a lot of courage to be true to yourself. And so let's salute that. So you quit not just your job, but you quit the Olympic team, is what you're saying at that point.
Yeah,
or you quit your job. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I quit the Olympics. I couldn't keep going and working full time. So I was working 50% and training 50%, but it wasn't sustainable in the slightest. So I stepped down from playing wheelchair rugby for that block of time.
Okay. And how long was that time?
When did I go back? So after 2012, I carried on playing club rugby for fun, but I took a break. Yeah, I went back in 2017. So I went back after the 2016 Olympics. So I did Kili 2016, and then I went back 2017.
Okay. So tell me about Kilimanjaro. What was the inspiration for that? Because a lot of able-bodied people find that, quite a bit of a climb. To do it on your hands and knees for the last stretch seems like a little bit of insanity there. So tell me, what was the inspiration for that?
So what happened was, over the years, I've raised lots of money for the Meningitis Research Foundation, done lots of fundraising, raised £250,000 for them. And they literally said to me, we send thousands of university students up Kilimanjaro to raise money for us. Do you fancy it? I went, well, yeah, all right. Why not? Let's give it a go. But we looked into it. Other people have been up in a wheelchair. They've been carried to the top. I didn't want to be carried to the top. I wanted to do it myself. So we set this goal to become the first person in the world to get to the top of Kili in a wheelchair without any assistance. And the information we were getting back was it might be doable. There was these man-made paths. So there's kind of two routes. a lot of people go up the route which is kind of closest to the airport and there's camps, but there's a few climbs you have to go up, not vertical climbs, but rock climbs. So we drove all the way around the mountain and went up the Rongai route, which was the most accessible route. We got a specially adapted wheelchair. Oh, by the way, I need to explain. Although I've got prosthetic legs as an amputee, I've got bad scars. So if I walk too much, my legs get sore. Day 1 was meant to take 3 hours, took 6 hours. Day 2 was meant to take 4.5, 5 hours, took 10. They then said, we're going to have to carry you. I said, that's not happening. And I mean, when we talk about determination, this is probably the most determined I've ever been, apart from the gold medal match. I was like, there is no way. Literally, I've told everybody that I'm going to do this. I'm the least disabled person on my wheelchair rugby team. Like, there's no way I'm getting carried up this mountain. It's not happening. And I had a set of knee pads with me. So I duct taped the knee pads to my legs and jumped out my chair and started crawling. But it was hard. It was really hard. I mean, I've done the London Marathon and I was falling to bits. I was covered in blood, but there was no way I was going to get carried up that mountain.
What do you learn from that experience?
Well, I definitely learned how far I could push myself. It was funny because all the things I'd learned along my journey probably got me to there. So where I'd been an athlete, I understood about nutrition. Where I'd been an athlete, I knew how far I could push myself, and I was probably prepared to go much further understanding my own physicality than other people would have, because they would have thought they were a failure. I knew I had loads left in the tank. So it was probably all the things I had learned which helped me to get through it. But what I learned was it's easier to take the easy way out, isn't it? I could have gone, yeah, I'll get carried, but I know in my heart of hearts, if I did, I'd have never forgiven myself and I'd be planning another trip out there. And I never want to see that mountain ever again. But I knew I had to do it for my own mental health. I had to. There was no way I could get. I mean, if everything had gone to shit, then of course I'd have got carried. But while I could, it was happening.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to. There's somebody's name's on the top of my. Give me 1 second. I just need to remember somebody's name, and so that I can quote him. There you go. There it is. So there's another speaker, a South African guy called Eric Vermeulen. And Eric is an adventurer. And I met Eric. We were both speaking at a conference and we became good friends. I've interviewed him for the book too. Eric is adventure tour guide, as it were. He takes people, he does Kilimanjaro, he does mountains in South America. So he takes school kids up Kilimanjaro all the time. The question I asked Eric about extreme adventuring, and more so these South American mountains as well, is how transferable is the experience? And if you've pushed the boundaries of your comfort zone, and I prefer the expression to expand your comfort zone rather than step out of it, because you step out of a comfort zone, we collapse. But we push the boundaries of our comfort zone, we expand it. I prefer the languaging of that, and in fact, there's a section in the book that talks about why I don't think you should get out of your comfort zone, but push the boundaries. Right? It's semantics. But anyway, I said to Eric, is this transferable? Somebody discovers that they can do more than they thought they could do. What's the result? And he said, good question, Andrew. I don't know. And I said, well, why don't you go and survey your previous clients? He said, another good idea, Andrew. So off he goes and surveys his clients. And he got some interesting things. That a lot of people said, yeah, this is transferable. I now know when I hit a boundary or a barrier, I can go a bit further. And a lot of people go, oh, you know what? Yeah, that was a great experience, but I'm never bloody doing that again.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's life gets interesting outside your comfort zone, doesn't it? I know it's a really simplistic way of doing it, but it all goes back to this saying yes. The problem is I had to nearly die to say yes to these things, and other people don't need to go. Other people don't need to go through what I went through to take opportunities now. But I thought it was, what's strange is I think it was kind of the arguments we were having, because they were saying, we've got to carry you. And I was saying, no, you're not. And they were like, oh, no, we really have to. And I was saying, no, it's not happening. And I think, and it makes me think about other people when it got tough, had just gone, yeah, okay, I'll be carried. But I wasn't prepared to do that. And why was I wired differently to to be able to say, no, I'm not going to. Well, it became an awfully good story. What was also strange was I didn't realise what I was doing at the time. They went, we're going to carry you. And I went, no, which just felt natural for me. And it wasn't until I got home and I'd be speaking to people and they'd say, how'd it go? And I go, oh, yeah, they were going to carry me. So I crawled and they go, sorry, what? And I go, yeah, they were going to carry me. So I duct taped my knee pads to my legs, you know what I mean? And they would go, what? And I go, yeah. And they go, how long did you crawl for? And I go, oh, hold on, 4.5 days. And they go, what? And that's when I had the penny dropping moment of what I'd actually achieved. But in that moment, it didn't compute. I didn't think, oh, I'm crawling, this is bonkers. I just thought, I'm not fucking getting carried. And I don't know why. And I presume this all stems from back to that trauma of wiring my brain differently to just look at opportunities and things in a different light.
Right.
So again, it's removed that barrier. Like other people would see it as a brick wall. I can't crawl. I just go, oh yeah, I'll do that. And I don't know why. And if I could bottle this, I'd be a millionaire. But I just don't know why I do these things.
Well, and that's the question, is unpacking this, right? Because people have extreme experiences. And I've talked to a bunch of people who've had extreme experiences. And is it translatable? You know, what is the formula? You know, I have this goal, I'm not negotiating it. Or the reality of our mortality says what we think is impossible is not. So, you know, what are we bottling is that there, you know, is to remove the easy way out. Is like the Vikings burning their ships on the beaches. You know, retreat is not an option, right? We have to go forwards and conquer.
You know, I like that. I'm stealing that. It's very, very good. God, we're getting philosophical today, aren't we? Yeah.
Well, we are.
Yeah. I think it's the mundane, isn't it? Not settling for the normal, for the cycle. I mean, COVID was probably good. Pick up the bum for
if
that.
you want to go philosophical to poetic, it was Henry Thoreau that said most people live lives of quiet desperation.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Do you know what? I go and meet up with my mates, Andrew, and I meet up with my mates, and some of them smoke dope that they've smoked since they were 15, and they're still doing all that stuff. And you know, they got nothing. They do jobs they hate, and I go and see them and have a few beers with them. I enjoy it. I can't tell them what I'm doing. I can't go, oh yeah, I've just done a speaking gig for this amount of money or anything. They're like, oh yeah, what are you up to? I'm like, oh, just living, yeah, it's all good. But I see them and I think, oh, I'm just wired differently. Something changed. So I would have been one of them, you know?
Okay. So back to potential, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people, you know, we can measure your performance, and we haven't even talked about the gold medal in Tokyo, which was, you know, a measurable performance. I mean, firstly, yay, you beat the Americans, and you know, being English by passport, and with, you know, with what the Americans are doing with the rest of the world right now, they're so anything we can do to beat them. So yay for that. You know, playing rugby, wheelchair rugby, which is sometimes known as murder ball. You know, awesome. That is a performance. But at what point did you see the potential? Because you came back to the Olympic team and said, because I want to achieve something. Right. So you've done Kilimanjaro, you've pushed the boundaries beyond anybody's. So when did you see the potential for the gold medal? Or did you see it? I mean, I'm assuming you saw it, but you may not have seen it.
No, after we won the bronze medal, after we won the silver medal, the semi-final. So no, I didn't. The team came 5th in London, 5th in Rio without me. They did well, but I went back because I've got 2 daughters and I've wanted them to see me compete at Paralympics. So I went back because I wanted to get my girls out to the games, which probably all stems from this mortality thing, and wanted them to see me as, you know, in the best possible light and come and have the most amazing experience with me. So we started training. Well, I started training again, getting elite level fit, which was fine. I was used to that. And then COVID happened, which was ridiculous. You know, and I get it if people lost loved ones in the pandemic, but I went from having access to world-class facilities, literally training on a £110,000 treadmill, sorry, £150,000 treadmill, to trying to train in a park, you know? And it was bonkers. But then the world completely flipped on its head, didn't it? But then a lot of my teammates are quite vulnerable. You know, they're incredibly disabled. So as an amputee, I was much better off because if I caught it, it was likely to be bad, but not catastrophic. Like from some of my teammates, could have been the end. It would have been horrendous. But yeah, we went there as a squad, but just something clicked. and it was amazing to be part of. We beat Canada, we beat New Zealand, we lost our last group game against America, which meant we had the really tough semi-final against Japan, who were the world champions, who we hadn't beaten in 8 years. And we did a number on them. We absolutely smashed Japan. I don't know if they came out with some complacency, thinking that they were just going to walk all over us, and we came out absolutely firing, but we smashed Japan. And that was amazing. That feeling now that no matter what happened, we were going home with a medal was unbelievable. And I remember that night, just like this warm glow inside me when we left the stadium, thinking we've done it. But for me, that really was the gold medal. You know, no European team had ever medaled up to that point. So we beat Japan in the semi-final. America beat Australia in the semi-final. So we had to play America again. And what was quite interesting is we just went into that day just saying we're just playing America. We didn't go into a gold medal match. As much as my heart was pounding and I was going into a gold medal match, that day we were just going to play America. And that was our mindset. And again, I don't know if America were complacent because they thought we've just got GB. We came out absolutely firing and we played the game of our lives. I tipped off the gold medal match, which I'm quite proud of. Started the game. And
I know.
Yeah.
I rewatched it on YouTube before this interview.
It was amazing. But what's quite funny is I'd never won anything. So I was so used to going into interviews and saying, yeah, we'll come back better and stronger and we will regroup. And I was just there with a medal going, you know, I didn't know what to say. So no, it wasn't. I mean, obviously in a team sport, it's an Olympic sport, you go to win, don't you? I mean, that's what makes sport really simple. There's winners and there's losers, and there is a time to perform. You know, you compare that to businesses, it can be the water can be muddied, can't it? We have to go out on that day and you give your performance, whether you come 8th or you get the gold medal. So obviously we went there to win, but realistically, did I think we'd do it? Probably not. So to have that outcome was phenomenal.
Okay, so then the $64,000 question is, what happened to the team, right? Because we know that there is a gestalt, you know, the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. A champion team will beat a team of champions, right? When that team comes together, right? Those are all the maxims, right? So what was it? You said you came out firing. Was it a speech from the coach? Was it all of you coming together and saying, let's do this? What was the magic formula for this Tokyo Olympics?
We were together as a team. We were really together. We did lots of work around our identity as a squad. So our sports psychologist, there's the tribe model, and it's teams with a strong identity perform better than teams without a strong identity. You'd think you'd win and that would create your identity, but it's not. It's the other way around. So we did lots and lots of work about what it meant to be part of the team and what we were all aiming for. We did some other things. We took a rock with us from Lilleshall where we trained, and we had the rock and we'd pass it around and someone would say something about the rock. So there was lots of other things as well. I think one of the biggest things we did for the gold medal match was we threw our tactics sheet out the window in the game against America. I won't go into the technicalities of wheelchair rugby, but we couldn't run a key attack and beat America. And they knew our key attacks and they just weren't working. So it was Jim, my teammate, said, we're just going to have to go for it. We're just going to have to improvise and freestyle. We're going to throw our tactics out the window. The idea was I'd come crashing in because I'm big and powerful, which would draw players. Jim would try and score around the other side or pass to somebody else. And I think we scored sort of 13 out of 14 key attacks in that game, which they didn't see coming. And in the warm-up, we were doing the old ones. So they thought, we've got you here. And they didn't have us and things. So yeah, if you want to win, throw your tactics sheet out the window, do something you've never done before. Which is stupid, but what worked for us. Yeah, all the planning.
Yeah.
Businesses will love this. All that stuff you do beforehand behind the scenes. Fuck it all off. And you might win.
No, yeah. Well, what is it? Tyson says, you know, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And the analogy I have actually is salsa dancing, which is, you know, I went to the salsa lesson and you know, you're moving your feet backwards and forwards but then you go to the salsa club and you have a couple of mojitos and you throw that out the window, right? It's exactly. You don't do that same step, right? So discipline gives us freedom in a paradoxical way. Is if you've done you can't you can't make it up unless you put the discipline in the first place, right? So
Yeah,
discipline.
but we made it up to an extent, but obviously we're a team and we have chemistry and we've worked together. We just needed to change something. And that's brave when you're going into the most important match of your life to go, all these things we've practiced are not going to work. We need to do something completely different here. And we've got one chance to do this. Let's go for it. But we had nothing to lose. We'd already overachieved, which was a nice position to be in. America got the silver medal at the last two games. They had everything to lose.
Yeah, nice one. So here's the question that came to mind as you've told me your story, and I really appreciate your candor. If you were to take the learnings that you now have and take that back to the hospital bed, to that 15-year-old who's, once you're past the critical stage and you're into the rehabilitation stage, what's the advice that you would then give?
From a practical perspective, okay, I'd just like to. It took me a few years of getting my shit together, but maybe I had to do that. I was a young man, I had probably had to get that out of my system. I wish I'd done disability sport when I was younger and just got on with it, but I can't change that. For me, the moment after we won the medal, we got back to the changing rooms and it was complete scenes. We're a rugby team, like champagne bottles are going off. It's chaos in this room. Everyone's cheering and shouting. And we got told we had to go out to get the medal. I'd forgotten that there was even going to be a medal ceremony. It was crazy. It was madness. And I wheeled out of that room and on the floor was a laminated piece of paper and it said wheelchair rugby gold medal. And someone had handwritten my name in a marker pen on this bit of paper on the floor. I remember looking at it and just having a moment to myself. And I wish I could pick myself up then at 40, whatever I was years old, 38 or something, pick myself up then, go back to that scared 15-year-old and go, do you know what, mate? It works out all right in the end. Because I was just along for the ride and I was scared and it was shit. But all it did was make me take opportunities. I'd love to say it was more complicated than that, but it wasn't. It gave me a set of balls and it made me do things I wouldn't have done. And that's my advice that I try and get across to people, that look, people don't need to go through what I went through to use their potential. They can do that now. I think we can sometimes get stuck in this hamster wheel, like we were saying earlier, that you can't do things. Push yourself out your comfort zone. If you're scared of heights, sign up to jump out of a freaking aeroplane. Like live a little, do something that's going to absolutely push you. Don't just bob along. That's boring. Don't be Magnolia. At work, don't just be content where you are. Go and ask your manager for some more responsibility. Like you only get one go round on the merry-go-round, so push yourself. I think that's my message that I try and get to people. I had to lose 30% of my body before I started to use 100% of my potential. People don't need to go through what I went through to use their potential. They can do that now.
Well, there's the quotable quote, isn't it? I had to lose 30% of my body before I used 100% of my potential. It's beautiful.
I did.
What did you want to show your daughters when you took them to the Olympics? You said, I wanted to do it. And so something about doing it for your children. How old were they?
I was working with my speaking coach yesterday and we were looking at my keynote and we're trying to work this out. And I got them to Paris, which was amazing. How old are they now? 11 and 13. So I've got two girls and there was a bit where I've got this clip of Ella screaming, that's my dad, that's my dad. And it gives me goosebumps watching it. I think I'm really scared of being a failure. I think because of what happened, I can't put my finger on it exactly, but I was so obsessed with getting them to the games and giving them that experience. And I can't work out if it's from a self-indulgent perspective in that I needed to get them there to validate who I am, or I wanted to give them that experience knowing how fragile life is. I don't know. But if I'm not around tomorrow, they would have seen that.
Okay. So have you spoken to them? What did it mean to see their dad win a gold medal?
Their kids don't give a shit, do they? They're just like, ah! No, I haven't. They saw the gold medal they didn't go out to Tokyo because of COVID. Yeah. So they watched it at home. And I don't think they got the gravity of what I did until like my dad was crying and the BBC were turning up to film us and things. And it was chaos here at my house. It was absolute scenes. And I don't think they kind of appreciated what I did until like you turn on channel 4OD and I was the face of 4OD and things like that. So I think that's when they went, oh, he's a bit of a big deal. Getting them out to Paris, we didn't win, and we came fourth. So 4 of my teammates retired after we won the medal, and 2 got injured out, bastards. So we went there with a really depleted squad, and it was a shame because, if I'm being honest, 4th was probably on par with the gold medal with the team we had. But that's sport.
Yeah.
But for me, getting them there was the main thing, and yeah, just having them there with me. And even when they got upset when we didn't win, and I think I kept saying that I wanted to get them there to see me win a medal. And my sports psychologist kept saying, you can't put that much pressure on yourself. That's an uncontrollable. You can only do your best. What they're going to see is a role model, and they're going to see how you behave when you're under immense pressure, under the spotlight. And then they're going to take that forward into their life.
Well, yeah, well, your sports psychologist is spot on with that. The important thing as a sports person is, who is your identity, even if you don't win the medal, right? Because you talked about the team and the tribe identity, but you have to have an identity. Because if you don't exist without the gold medal, then the gold medal isn't going to build you an identity at all. You have to know who you are as an individual. And then the medal becomes as a result of that.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, you're right. You are. And it's taken me a few months to be able to realize that, really, with my daughters now, because I was really angry for a while. You know, you go to win, don't you? I guess what's really tough with sport is you put so much of your life into it. You know, you work so incredibly hard, and 4th place feels like a failure. And if we're being realistic, 4th in the world isn't that bad, is it? And, you know, but it's taken me a while to be able to say that, particularly when we were at the top of the mountain last time.
Yeah, sure. But what did you learn? What did you learn going into the Paris Olympics? I mean, did you get something from that process, working with a depleted team and still coming 4th, as opposed to working with a great team and getting gold in Tokyo? You still made it to Paris.
I probably learned more about myself this time. Last time we were an amazing team, and we had that sort of magic sparkle dust where we came together, and it was really good. But this time, you know, I had the weight of the team on my shoulders, and I was able to cope. My God, it was hard to get myself in the right place in terms of psychology to perform in those games. But when I think back to that 15-year-old before I was poorly that wouldn't say boo to a goose, to playing nearly all the minutes and not quite getting there, but literally I had nothing else, you know. And that's, I guess I'm proud of that, because I couldn't have given any more. It's not that I'm going, oh crap, I could have done this, I could have done that. It's literally, we talk about marginal gains. I covered all of them. There was nothing else I could have done, but I couldn't have been any further from that guy before I was poorly at those games, even though we didn't win.
Yeah. Well, I'll share with you something that's going to be in the book from a champion rower who is a pastor and works in schools and uses rowing as a medium for kids. And he talks about the duvet test, that when you climb into that duvet at night, you know, it's not about whether you made your splits or not. Do you know you did your best, right? And then you can have a good night's sleep. And I think that's regardless of whether you're in sport, in business, as a mother or as a father, as you know, it's the duvet test. Can we go to bed at night knowing we gave it our all? And I think that's when we live our potential, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. And so many people don't, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
I don't know if people get complacent where we live. Life's a bit too easy at times. I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? And this goes back to our wheelie bin thing. I don't know if people make problems for themselves sometimes because just to make things interesting. I don't know. It's peculiar, isn't it?
Yeah, boredom's a strange thing. Well, thank you very much. That's been a fun conversation.
Thank you for joining us on Self-Leadership to Potentialize with Andrew Bryant. If you're ready to be the driver of your life and not the passenger, keep exploring with us. Get your copy of Potentialize wherever good books are sold. For more resources or to book Andrew for coaching and speaking engagements, visit selfleadership.com. Until next time, think smart, lead better, and always potentialize your future.